Hi, my name is Edlin Garcia, and in this video, I'll demonstrate setting up a secure MQTT connection using TLS as described in Lab 4. I will generate the certificates, configure the broker, and test the secure message publishing. So, part 1 is to always install all the libraries needed, so I'm going to navigate to the directory where the library.deb packages are actually stored. So, let's open desktop. Let's open lab 6-MQ tt-tls. Let's open up where the tls libraries are. Okay, so I'm going to install about 5.deb files. But first, I'm going to update the package list so the system knows exactly what the latest version is. So sudo update fiu. Okay, so everything should be upgraded. So my next step is to ensure that all the core dependencies that are required by Mosquito and libwebsockets are actually installed. So that's 2 lines of code. Sudo install libem4. Okay, next I need to enter sudo install libdlt -dev. So my next step is to actually manually install the VM specific version for the libwebsockets library. In this case, we're using AMD64. So I'm just going to copy and paste the code. It's just sudo dpkg-i and the path to where the AMD64 file is. That was given to us by the professor, by the way. So now I need to ensure that Mosquito and the Mosquito broker and the client tools and the development files are actually installed. So let's go and do that now. That's sudo apt install libmosquito dash dev. Okay, so now let's actually install mosquito. So now it's to install the mosquito client version. Clients with an S. Now let me just exit this directory to see what version of Mosquito was installed. It says 1.6.9 in the instructions. It suggested 1.612, but I believe this version should work fine. Also, if you notice, it shows an error here saying that the address is already in use. That's because the broker runs on this port by default, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so now it's part 2 where I need to actually create the certificate. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create the directory first. Certificate, certs for short. MK, that's gonna create it. Let's open it. Let's create the directory for the certificate authority and let's open it. Okay, so these folder actually allow me to store the certificate authority files. So now that I've done that, also for some of the code, I'm just going to copy and paste it from the instructions to avoid any mistake because I've had errors before due to spacing or the way how I typed it. So since I already have the code, I'm just going to copy and paste it to make the video shorter as well. So now I'm going to create the self-signed CA certificate, which should be valid for 365 days. Also, please note that the lab uses standard OpenSSL certificate authority creation command. However, OpenSSL requires a configuration file that defines the v3 underscore CA extension. So I've added the config. Let me paste it here. I'm going to show you what I add. I added this section right here, config, etc. SSL open, because before it wasn't working properly. So this ensures that the CA is properly created and can sign the other certificate securely. It took me a while to realize, but after I made that modification, it worked perfectly. So let's enter the PEM passphrase for all of the phrases, and the password I'm using the same FIU123456. Let's verify that FIU123456. Okay, so let's enter the information given to us. That's USA, Miami, FIU. The dot is going to leave it blank. We're going to use the local host. Let's enter my email. Okay, so let's just list it to see that the certificate and the certificate and the private key has been listed. So now I can actually exit this directory. So now that the certificate authority is created, it's time to create the keys and the certificate for the broker itself. So I need to create a directory for that. Let's create the one for the broker. Let's open that folder. And then our next step is to actually generate the 2048 RSA private key. So remember that 2048 is the minimum available for RSA. So let's enter that. Let's check that it has been generated. Yeah, our key has been generated. So now I can actually create the signing request file. So let's enter that. After this, we're going to see the CSR for the broker. We're going to enter the same information as well. I forgot to mention earlier that the information that we enter for our certificate request is known as a distinguished name or DN. So let's quickly enter that. USA, Miami, FIU. That leaves it blank. We're using the local host. .edu. FIU123456. Okay, let's list it. Okay, so we have our CSR and our key file. So now that that has been completed, I need to actually pass the certificate request file to the certificate authority. So again, I'm just going to copy and paste this one just to avoid any mistake. Let's enter it. For this one, make sure that your paths are correct. That was another issue I noticed that I was having, so just be careful with that. Let me enter FIU123456. Okay, so that should have created it. Let's see. Yeah, it said that the signature is okay. So that signs the broker CSR with the certificate authority, and it actually produced the TLS certificate that we needed. So let me just check that it's there. Yeah, the certificate, the CSR, and the key. So we don't need the CSR anymore because we already signed that over. Broker CSR. Let's remove that and exit this directory. So now I need to repeat the process for the MQTT client. So let's create the directory for client. Let's open that folder. And then we need to actually generate the private key for client itself. Same steps as the broker, we're just repeating it for the client. And then let's just list it that it's there. Yeah, the key was created. So now I could request the signing file, the CSR file actually. Yeah, so let us enter the information. All the information is the same, by the way, for each request. Local host 434 shift.fiu.edu FIU 123456. We're going to enter FIU. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing. I need my TLS certificate for the client itself. Again, be careful with the paths. That was a big issue. I had to run it like several times before I realized my path wasn't correct. Let's enter FIU 123456. Okay, so let's list it and see if it was created. Yep, we have our certificate, our CSR, and our private key. I no longer need the client CSR, just like the brokers are going to remove that as well. So CSR, remove client CSR, and I can exit this directory. So at this point in time, I have now generated the certificate authority, created the keys and certificate for both the broker and the client, which are all signed by the certificate authority. So before moving on and before configuring Mosquito, I need to check that I have all the directories. So let's just install 3. It's already in newest version, so we can just move forward with that. Let me see, this is what we want. He gave us a output of what we should expect, so I'm just going to cross check that. Broker certs CA cert CA. Okay, I believe this should be fine. I just need to be careful with the path here. So now that I have all the files and directory, I can actually configure Mosquito. This is where the path again is really important. So let's just enter our line of code. That's gonna pull up a editor to a notepad and to configure Mosquito. It's gonna take a little while, so just wait for it to pop up. Okay, so the file came up and it has my previous configuration file actually. So let me just cross check with the path. It's going to be listening on port 8883, home Ubuntu, the car file, cert file, key file, and okay. So what this does is it tells Mosquito to use the TLS on port 8883. It loads our certificate authority and the broker cert, and it requires the client to present a valid certificate to connect. So moving on, I need to actually run the broker and client test. So let's just save this. We can exit this. We're going to open a new terminal, and I'm going to enter the line of code that starts Mosquito in verbose mode using the configuration that we just entered in that file. So let me just get that. FIU 123456. Okay, so it says that it's open and listening to the port. So I hope that this works now. Okay, let's see if this is going to work. It shows that the client was connected from our local host. Sending, received, published. There we go. Finally, it works. So it shows that it publishes a secure message to the topic slash world. Let's see. It received the published message. Disconnect. After it connects, then it disconnect back. So as you can see, the broker received the secure connection and the message successfully. And that concludes the secure MQTT setup for TLS. Some tips I'd like to mention is that when actually signing over to create the TLS certificate, make sure to include the extension. In the instructions, it didn't have the dash extension or the dash configuration, but make sure to include that for the certificate authority, the broker, and the client. That was an issue I was having. Be careful with the spacing. That was another little syntax issue I was having as well. So those are like the tips I would have in terms of this lab. But that's about it. As you can see, it works. So thank you for watching.